You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
All right, rolling Drinks and a Movie podcast. Yo, I'm back with Matt.
And dogs, but they're not barking yet, so hopefully we're going to be okay. Hello, everyone.
Today, we're going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's second film, Pulp Fiction. Sorry, it's the 30th anniversary I think, May 21st.
Oh, man, I didn't realize it was that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so my plan is to actually release this on May 21st, hence why I'm probably not going to edit it.
Congratulations. Cheers to 30 years of Pulp Fiction, man.
Yeah, New Beverly's actually going to do a screening of it. I think that whatever day it is, 20th or 21st.
I'm going to guess you've seen it on film at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's been a while, though. I think it's been a while since I've seen that one. But anyway, so we've got a few little pours here that we're doing today. So we've got a new product from Jim Beam. Actually, we've got two. We've got the new Jim Beam Black, but it's relabeled and they changed the proof. Now it has an age statement of 7 years. The original one used to just be Jim Beam Black, extra age. From what I understand, I think the original one, or it did have an age statement years ago. I think it was 8 years, but around 2015 or something, I heard they had changed it or relabeled it to not have the age statement.
So it's going to be the same recipe, but just definitely aged 7 years. Is that like,
yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Like at minimum. And they also changed the proof as well. So the new one is 90 proof.
Oh, okay.
I think the original one is 84, 86.
Oh, interesting. That's just from aging. It's like, as I assume the recipe is the same,
Well,
right?
yeah, the recipe should be the same. Like it should be the same as like the Booker's and Knob Creek.
Oh, just
like
their whole
all
thing.
of it.
Okay, all the beans.
Yeah, but yeah, now we just have a definitive age statement, so we know it's at minimum 7 years.
That's super cool.
They, didn't do as much dilution. So yeah, we got a little mini of the original Black just to do a little comparison. I thought that'd be kind of cool. And we also got some Knob Creek, classic Knob Creek 9 as well to compare and see, how big a difference those 2 years are going to make, as well as, the jump in proof, which for me is going to be a big deal. We've also got the newest Bookers. This is the batch,
bad boy.
batch 1 of 2024.
He's lifting the glass as he's describing it, folks. He's really going for the dramatic effect here.
Take it out of this box, but
bottle.
Yeah, so this one, from what I understand, this is actually the oldest Bookers they've done in a while. They typically range in that 6 year zone, but this one is 7 years, 7 months and 8 days at 124.5 proof. This is the Springfield Batch. So this will be a fun one to compare too.
Yeah,
the 7 years, all right, the Black. So we'll save that one for a little bit later.
Have they been releasing those every year? Is that?
Yeah, they do, I think, 4 batches a year.
Oh, cool.
So we did one of the 2023, I think Charlie's batch we did a while back.
Sounds familiar.
But yeah, this one just dropped, and there'll be 3 more throughout the year.
Fantastic.
But yeah. Whew, sorry, I'm like out of breath already. Damn, I need to do more cardio, but here we go. I'm glad I only bought 1 mini because this is already a lot between.
Yeah, so you're going to start with the mini?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll do. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll start with the new Jim Beam Black.
Okay, because I sipped the knob already.
The knob,
to cleanse it up, but
yeah. Well, here we go.
We got more of it. Thank you.
Here's the new Jim Beam Black, aged 7 years, coming in at 90 proof.
Here we go.
Cheers.
The first one with an age statement. Oh, wow.
I'll have to go in again.
Damn.
My initial thoughts on the nose, now it's already kind of changing. I thought it smelled kind of sweet, but now...
No, I'm getting a little bit of sweetness.
A little diluted to me.
But yeah, not as strong. Damn. I gotta tell you, man. So you're saying this bottle was $30?
$20.99.
$20, 21 bucks.
So my take on it, and I also did just eat pizza. Hopefully that's not
fair.
But I feel like it's not that sweet on the palate. It almost seems slightly more oak forward, and I know that's a bit of a stretch, more of like that char characteristic, a little dark.
Definitely a little dark.
Yeah, like, I don't even know, like, bitter is a strong word. I want to say bitter, but just a little rugged, like, pretty bold.
Right away, I thought it was a little bit of the sweetness, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Felt a little, candied is the worst word to use, but not chocolate. God, what am I thinking? Maybe I was just thinking, oh, man, maybe not. Now, okay, that one, now I'm getting some of that oaky. Mm-hmm. It makes my lips kind of feel like I'm eating a candy in the front of my lips, and I don't know why. So maybe that's just me.
Like a hard candy?
Yeah.
Like, what do you call it?
Not a Jolly Rancher, but like
you're salivating kind of?
Yeah, kind of like that. That just maybe me.
Well, I'm going to try the original one now. Let me see.
Oh, yeah. Let's go for that. Well, similar nose.
This nose, funny enough, on the original black reminds me a little more of like a Knob Creek. But let me see if I'm right. I've got Knob Creek right here. So
there you go.
Yeah, it does actually. Wow. More so than the other one did.
Oh, yeah. You're totally right.
All right, there we go. Now the original black extra age.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
That's way thinner.
Way thinner.
Way lighter.
Thinner. Like I was like, oh, this is. I was going to say subdued, but basically the same thing. Where there's not nearly the type of flavor.
Yeah, that's too light. That's too like man, and that's only like 4 proof points lower too.
I was going to ask you. Okay, wow, damn.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing this right. Yeah, 86 proof, and the new one is 90. Dang.
It's so interesting, man. If money was a huge factor at this level, I was going to say it's tough for me to say Knob Creek or Beam because at $21, I mean that's a no-brainer in my opinion. And what's a bottle of Knob? I haven't bought a $7.50.
When I was at Total Wine to get this, I looked and it was $34.99.
Okay, so
$7.50.
So $13, $14 more. Wow, $14 more. Jeez. I think I would still reach for the knob, but it's not easy. That's the thing. This heavy. I really like this a lot, actually.
Yeah, the original black. I just tasted it again. It's just too for me. It's too thin and diluted. It's just not.
It's wild how much that makes a difference. I wouldn't have guessed, considering they're keeping that as their their default.
I wonder if there's anything else changed or different. I mean, because I guess how they batch it, right? Maybe they wanted to do something a little more bold. Let's see. After 7 years resting in barrels, something special happens. The liquid turns a rich gold with notes of caramel, vanilla, and warm oak. This is the smooth aged whiskey of Jim Beam Black. I'm gonna go back to the age state of one now.
So are they not going to have the original black in stores anymore? Is that just done?
Yeah, it's discontinued now.
Wow, interesting.
For this new label.
Dude, I can't believe that's $21. Like I'm literally blown away by how.
Yeah, it's a pretty big step up from the original.
Yes.
But, and I don't know, I'll be curious to see if this opens up a little bit over, some days or some time. Let me go to Knob Creek now. Just one of my all-time favorites, Knob Creek 9. Here we go.
I was saying let me go back to another day. Yeah, I can't believe that.
Right now, yeah, maybe my palate's just out of whack, but not wildly different.
Exactly, man. It's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
And once again, if you've only got $21 or whatever in your wallet, man, that would be a tough sell to pick up the extra $14 on that.
I think I'll have to do like a blind tasting soon with the two of them. Maybe throw Baker's in there as well, since that's a 7-year-old.
Maybe it's, by the way, this is totally anecdotal, but I often see way more Beam, like at Vaughn's or supermarket, than I see any Knob Creek product, interestingly enough. And I don't know why that is, but so the fact that could be your go-to if you're in a pinch and, you're in a place where they don't have a good liquor store nearby.
Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome. I can't believe that. I'm really blown away by that, man.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to go back and try them again, like with a fresh palate or maybe after drinking other stuff. Right. And yeah, do a blind tasting sometime would be fun. But yeah,
wow, that's wild, man.
I mean, Knob Creek definitely has sweeter notes coming through.
Sure.
Than the 7-year, and
it's a little bit strong. I mean, you can tell there's a little extra kick to it, but
yeah, and it finishes way longer. That's for sure.
Absolutely on that. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's definitely more reminiscent of like, okay, we're getting closer to that 10-year kind of mark. But yeah, dang. All right, cool. I wonder how this will evolve for me, because when I got like their new label, like updated Jim Beam single barrel, which I think I brought here and you tried it at some point.
We did. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
That one, when I first opened it and tried it, I was like, whatever. It just kind of tastes like a, beam, whatever. But that one got better and better. Like as it got down past the shoulder, it got so good. And I remember even doing a blind tasting. I have the video on the Instagram where I did that. Because that one was 108 proof. So it was that blinded with Baker's, which is 107 proof, 8 years, something. My bottle was like 8 years. And then the Hardin's Creek 2-year-old that was also 107 or 108 proof. So I was like, let's see where these stand. And the Jim Beam single barrel that I had definitely surpassed the other two. So we'll see.
I know I've got you on the lookout for Hardin's Creek. That if, when I see it, pick up a bottle. So,
yeah,
but that's cool, man. I gotta say that's awesome for like people who a good place to start. Whatever like that. It'd be tough not to recommend that to somebody who's getting started.
Yeah, I think it is a good starter one for sure. If you're like, you're not sure, but you want to like start to move up in the age. Not just live in that 4-year-old zone, still spend around $20. Like this would be the way to go. But
maybe you enjoyed a glass of Woodford. Here's
right. Here's another one. Man, yeah. It'd be interesting to blind this against like Wild Turkey 101.
Some of the others.
Wild Turkey 101 and like maybe just like Buffalo Trace, like regular Buffalo Trace.
Can you remind me, what does Wild Turkey age state? No, they don't. Okay.
No, 101 does. I mean, there was the 12-year, like the imported one that we tried.
Right, I remember that one.
In the Russell's Reserve line is all age stated.
But not that one.
But I think Wild Turkey 101 is like between 6 and 8 years old. Okay, that's like where they pull from.
Got it. So that'd be a good comparison then. It's in that
range. It's in the same kind of pocket. Yeah, shit. All right. Oh, compare this to like Jack Daniel's Bonded too. See, I wish I had time to make more
Bonded.
To make more videos. That's why I need to quit my job.
I was about to say, if you didn't have a job.
I'm going to quit my job and just make blind tasting videos again.
Gosh, yes. The amount of content you can produce.
Yeah. Someone pay me to do it, please.
If you're looking, any brands out there, Rudy's available.
Well, yeah, man. Dang. Pulp Fiction, 30-year anniversary. And this is, I love Quentin Tarantino's movies, but I haven't done many of them on the podcast because as fun as they are, it's almost like it's easy to turn into just like quoting about them and all that. And, and Pulp Fiction is one where it almost, if it feels like what is left to say about it, but
totally.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it to some degree. I mean, it is for me a movie that definitely changed the way I saw things, and clearly it changed cinema. So I think we can talk about
culture. I think you can there. It's a cultural film. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what great idea for the 30th anniversary. What's your first experience, or what's kind of, or even looking back on it, what's like your like? How do you think? But when you think about Pulp Fiction, how does it impact you? When did you see it? All those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. I watched it in high school, and it was after I saw Kill Bill and Reservoir Dogs. So I think the first one I saw was Kill Bill Volume 1.
It's a good one to start with, actually.
Yeah. Because that was the time where I was really into like kung fu movies.
Oh, nice.
Martial, like I was watching Shaw Brothers stuff. So it hit
it. Really appreciate Kill Bill with all the styles of reference.
Yeah. And then really into Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, no. Okay,
so seeing that RZA did the music and they used different samples from the same movies. And references to certain movies. It hit at the exact right time in my life. I mean, 2003, I was a freshman in high school when it came out, and it's funny because I remember just seeing the names, but I was like just really starting to get into movies at that point. But seeing the name, and there was something about with Kill Bill because it said the 4th film by Quentin Tarantino.
That's how.
So I think that's when I first noticed, like outside of John Carpenter, because I was in the horror movies, and he makes it a point to put like John Carpenter's The Thing, John Carpenter's Escape from New York, But besides that, the other name was Tarantino. So then I eventually saw Reservoir Dogs because my dad had it. He had the videotape.
The VHS.
I remember seeing the name.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's that guy. And I'm like, wow, this movie is awesome. At the time, I wouldn't even been able to articulate it. But again, it just hit at the right moment.
Totally.
Like being like in high school and young and seeing that, being into movies. And then eventually I saw Pulp Fiction. And it just, again, topped everything, was better and better.
Yeah.
Watched it with friends. I bought the soundtrack immediately, a 2-disc,
totally.
like deluxe edition.
Such a good soundtrack
from Circuit City.
It has clips from the movie. So the very first track, "I love you, honey, buddy."
Yeah.
And as soon as he says that, for a fucking brick move, dude, it jumps into the music. Oh, it's such a good soundtrack. That CD was, I'm sure they sold a ton of copies because friend, everyone had it. Yeah, it was a big thing.
Yeah. So it hit me really hard. It's one of the, those movies are all contributors to me deciding that I wanted to make movies too and go down that path. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like Quentin and that hate his films and will like go all against it. But for me, I'm always I still think he's brilliant. I think the writing is amazing. The use of music choices. I don't care that he's taking old ideas and remixing them because at least he does something new with it. And it's super fresh and it's really cool. And that's just what it is. And I'm never going to back down from that.
I think it's tough too when you have a film that's impacted you so much. So I got a kind of a similar story, but I was aware that the movie had come out in '94, and I was aware of Reservoir Dogs when it came out as well, because they were heavily promoted, at least in SoCal. I don't know if that's around the country and stuff like that, but you saw commercials for Reservoir Dogs and for Pulp Fiction. Especially the big thing when the film came out was that Travolta had been doing talking baby movies, the baby movies, and now he's back. He's back to his roots. He's this great, the talk of the very much. If you watch the news or anything like that, it was, oh man, Travolta's got this great part. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't see it in theaters when it came out because I was only 12 at the time. So it probably wouldn't have been, maybe, I don't know. But I know as soon as it came out on VHS, my dad purchased it because he was into the hype as well. Mm-hmm. He had seen Reservoir Dogs on HBO or something. And so he was like, I got to see this film. This guy is making films. And usually at that time when we were like 13 or stuff, he might screen a film before he shared it with us just to make sure he might have to talk through some stuff. But my parents were very open about showing us rated R movies, just telling you, look, this is a fake. It's just a movie. We've talked about this. I had cool parents. But this one we watched all together, my brothers. My mom didn't give a shit, so she walked out of the room. But my brothers and I, this was like a family thing for us. And even when just being 13 years old, this is when I'm just getting into cinema like yourself, man. Like 93, 94 is huge for movies for me. And I remember just laughing so much, there was this thrill of not knowing what was going to happen next. And it's so funny watching the film nowadays because you see how many films have chosen nonlinear structures and throwing you off, putting you in situations where you might not know what's happening next. But watching it for the first time, I just remember having no clue what was going to happen next. And one of the biggest scenes where Butch pulls up and Marcellus Wallace walks across the sidewalk or the crosswalk, that was like mind blowing in my mind. Like, what? You just read, all those kind of things. And then Travolta gets bumped off halfway through the movie. You're like, what is going on? I have so many things going on in this film. It forever changed my appreciation for cinema and what you could do with a movie. Like, it didn't have to be just point A to point B to point C. You could do all these different things and you could still be entertaining and funny. And then just hearing people talk, like you might have a conversation with your friend or somebody you work with, there's a lot of conversations that are just colleagues shooting the breeze at work, in this film. And so all those type of things, I wasn't aware of quite all of them, but they all struck a chord and a nerve with me. And to think that like, oh man, movies they don't have to be dinosaurs eating people, which by the way, Jurassic Park changed I loved that movie, but they didn't have to just be, alien or starships blowing. There's all these other ways of making it. And this is kind of about the time I found Kevin Smith and Linklater and all these other guys too that were just really influential in my.
And it's interesting too how it hits. Like I was watching, Siskel and Ebert's review on it, and they even did a whole
special
show, like a segment.
They knew at the time this was changing cinema.
It's crazy.
It's wild.
It's like, dude, it's only his second movie and you guys are already doing it. And they talk about is he truly a one-man new wave or just flavor of the month? But, talking about the dialogue aspect of it, and it's like, you're hanging out with the bad guys, and it's like, what's the stuff they talk about between all the stuff that the movie would normally be about? And
I feel like we should be having some McDonald's, by the way, in honor. But anyway,
and it's funny because more and more, I think through the podcast and also with my friend and I trying to get projects actually like moving and rewrites and figuring out what's marketable and these little boxes you got to check that, I see things more critically, and I think back to this and it's like, okay, but it would be easy to just say, or maybe not easy, obviously, because it did change cinema, but why is it with this movie I'm not like, well, the Royale with cheese thing doesn't advance the plot because it has nothing to do with it.
It's a great point, right? That happens often in this film.
But it works and it's okay. I just suddenly remembered when we recorded the Warriors episode. Sorry guys, I don't know when that's going to come out, but when you talked about like, well, when the movie was like, what was I supposed to leave, like walk away with this movie, and it's the same here. Like, well, what do we? I mean, I guess we can say about any movie, but like, well, what's the takeaway of the big Kahuna part, or whatever? But yeah, I just think it's interesting how some films can hit, and even they Siskel and Ebert talked about it too, of like how, and especially at that point, it's screenwriting books and screenwriting this and class, and how everything became so formulaic, and they started to notice it more and more in like the American cinema. But so maybe it's just the time it came out as well, of like, boom, here's this new fresh thing that throws away all those, quote unquote rules and just does what it wants. He's doing what he wants. And I realize a little more and more, and I can't speak too much to this because I'm not like such a deep analytical cinephile, but I think it is somewhat rooted in like some of the French New Wave stuff of like Godard and just these conversations and criminal stuff. Like they were kind of doing it too. It's a different vibe, but it was something that existed, just not really like here in American cinema at that time, I guess.
Another film like My Dinner with Andres, I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but it's where they're just talking at a table, for the and Linklater had already, by the way, released Slacker. Yeah, Slacker was already out at this point. So, and at the same time, I had that same thought. I'm like, why is it working in his film? And people will still try to do it this day, and it doesn't connect, or it doesn't draw us in the same way. And I had a couple thoughts on it. One, I think the performances, the acting is amazing in this film. And I think it's one of those things that might even get overlooked in retrospect. Travolta's performance is ridiculous. Sam Jackson's is ridiculous. Bruce Willis, Ving Rhames is incredible. Like all these performances, Uma Thurman's performance, they are so freaking good. They make the dialogue feel so real and so grounded. I think that's one of the things that helps sell that aspect to it. Because nowadays we're 30 years later and I'm watching, like, there are many conversations that happen in this film that the only thing I could point to them being necessary is they give us character development and they just draw us in. They don't really, they're not pushing they're not a Disney animated film that's needing the dialogue to push us forward to the next scene. And so the performances were one of the things. I also think in watching this film again, one of the things I was blown away by was actually how much he's using the camera to tell his story as well. There's a few scenes where long takes where there's no dialogue. And that still happens in Tarantino films throughout his history. But it gave me this sense of like drawing me into the world that these people inhabit. And my guess, I can't really remember specifically, but I'm guessing like we hadn't experienced that at the time, especially some of the long tracking shots. But like,
what's one of the moments? Like,
so when they walk into Jackrabbit Slim's, that was one of them. But then also the scene where Butch walks across as he's going through the backyard, back into his apartment,
and you just get the ambient sound. That's a great moment there.
Some of the sound is amazing in this film, but so there's a couple of them. Also, even the build up before you get to Jackrabbit Slim's. As Vincent's walking into, and we've got the song going, one of my favorites. But we see body parts. We don't see full. We get
the warrior shot.
The warrior shot. Yes,
the microphone. Yeah.
And I was just, Kill Bill. There are very strong visuals we've associated with Tarantino now over the years. Yeah. This one, the filmmaking is so effortless, or it's so connected to giving you this experience that I was like, I almost forget about it. Now I haven't watched the film in a few years, so
these were the first movies too where I where I realized style.
Oh,
like
dude.
there's filmmakers that have style in their own vibe. Because I didn't really dig into directors, I think, until after I saw Quentin's movie. Because that's when I realized, like, oh, that's the directed by. Like, all right, that's the person. That's why I got to pay attention. All right, we're going to watch John Carpenter stuff now. Richard Lee. Like Kevin said, we're going to watch directors now, not so much just like individual movies. And then, putting that together, like the style, he just has his own style. And again, you know, I know just as well as everyone else that so much of it is ripped off of like older things. But I think it's fine because even there is stuff where it's like completely just, you just bit it and did it, you know, but he at least makes it again fresh in a way. And I think I've heard him say this in an interview too, like the hip hop aesthetic, where he equated it, and I might be wrong, maybe I'm just making this up in my head, but he equated it to like a hip hop producer, you know, that's sampling old music and making something new out of it. You make it like Wu-Tang Clan, like RZA samples all these different records and albums, different songs, and like mixes it up into a brand new beat. Yeah. To where you can't even tell like how many and what songs it all came from, but it's something new. And he really, truly, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good way to put it. That's kind of like how his movies are. And he'll always get a pass from me because he's doing something really cool and awesome with it. Kill Bill, I know it's Lady Snowblood and I know it's Death Rides a Horse, but man, is it a cool so updated version of those two, of those ideas.
There's this old, I don't know what you call it, but there's this saying in writing that good writers borrow, great writers steal. Yeah. And they're, especially with the way that he does it. And I would equate, I mean, we've talked some Coen brothers before, you know, where like Coen brothers pick these genres. Films have been done in those genres before, and they put their spin on it. I feel like we get to go to Quentin world, you know, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Like we get to, yes, these are, if you like film, there are things you have seen before. At the same time, like that, in my opinion, almost enhances it because you can play off people's expectations and you can do some things that you might not be able to do otherwise. And I just think that adds really to a lot of this. So it is something that, like yourself, I own the soundtrack. I probably watched I literally can still like quote. I mean, it's so quotable. I can still quote so many of these scenes and all these different things. Like that hasn't changed, and I think that has just added to how much the film has impacted my life.
Man, that was the thing. Like as soon as I haven't watched it in a while. Excuse me. And when I did, I watched it with Sally. And
oh, nice. Has she seen it before?
Yeah, she had seen it before, but it had been a while for her too. And right off the bat, it's crazy. Like, you know, this writing is so good because it's so memorable. I felt immediately from the first frame that I could recite this whole entire movie. I've never tried to memorize it. I've never read the script. I've never looked, but it just flows so naturally and so like well. Right. That I'm like, wow, I remember all of this. Like I can say it all. And that's his main talent, right? It's just like those writing chops are crazy, and there's no one that quite does it like him. Like Kevin Smith, maybe, at least at some point to an extent, but even that is just not quite it's different.
Have you talked about Casablanca on your podcast yet?
Not yet, no.
So Casablanca has things like that where everyone knows all the lines, yet when you watch it in the film, it still actually works. Mm-hmm. And the way that Quentin writes, it resonates with us. There's something about it that connects with us. And maybe it was the fancy way at the time that he was putting the profanity in with all this other stuff. I think part of it is, I mean, what does that dialogue sound like if Samuel L. Jackson isn't delivering it? You know, like there are these things that just all connected all at the right point, and it resonates with us. And that's I think one of the reasons why I remember it so much. So
yeah, there is something to it of like having the exact right people do it too. Just having, you know, a great eye for casting and putting people in the right spots, you know?
On Windows back in the day, you still can. You can set like your different sounds for different things. Mm-hmm. And anytime something like didn't work in Windows, you get like an error. I had the gunshot and then, oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Forever, that was my thing. And sometimes it would be late at night and I'd scare the shit out of myself when hearing a gunshot go off. But goddamn, it worked perfectly. Thank you, Quentin, for that. Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, they're so great. And
can I take a little more hit of that too?
Yeah, I'm going to do a little comparison. That dynamic with Samuel Jackson and John Travolta is so good too. They're so great together.
Oh my God. I appreciate it even more.
And their attitudes, like
the way that they act with or they talk to each other, it like you feel like these guys have worked together for a long time, even though Vincent's been gone for a few years. Like all these things, it's such a great relationship.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let this open up a little more. Cool. It's just the way they speak and just the funny little things they say. It's in all his movies. Just the way they. They're talking about the foot massages. Like he's like, it ain't the same ballpark. It ain't the same. It ain't even the same fucking sport. And I like how in these character traits, right? How you can tell they like to debate a lot, but John Travolta always comes out on top when he's like, "All right, would you give a man a foot massage?" And the way Samuel,
the perfect pause.
Yeah, just the perfect timing, right? Perfect pause timing. He's just like, fuck you. And then even later on when they're talking about the pigs versus dog, like, all right, would you like eat a dog? I don't remember what it was, but the filthy animal.
The swine, I don't think I'm swine. I also, and I think this even adds to the relationships. I love how Uma Thurman kind of takes on the audience role where she calls them out, like, you guys are worse than a sewing circle when you get together, but that highlights their kind of relationship that like, these people, they work together, but they obviously know each other well enough too, where they have these chats and that they can go these places and not,
even though they're gangster killers, they gossip.
Yes, they totally do. Oh, it's so good. Are we letting this open up? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I'll give it a little more time. Just pour the new Springfield batch.
One of the things that I really appreciated, even this time around, the first time I saw after Mia overdoses, there's so much buildup and so much tension. I don't think any of that even works if you don't have all of the things that lead up to it, And I think that's one of the things Quentin is just an expert at, is piecing all those things together. And I know exactly what's going to happen. And I was still on the edge of my seat, even watching it now, 30 years later. That needle goes up. There's the cutaways. We see all the faces. I appreciated even little details like Trudy, the one with the cutaways to the people in the background as they're building up to this. Like it was so well done, and I was after the scene, I was like, I can't believe I was still on the edge of my seat for that shit. Like, I know what's going to happen. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point of where this dialogue does advance the plot, right? Because we know the stakes are high because it's his boss, and it starts with that whole story, like what the foot massage thing, that because it's went about, he threw the dude out the window. But I love too, that reminds me when they get to the door and the camera's behind them in the two shot. And when he says like, he wants me to, take care of her while he's gone. And I love when Sam Jackson's like, take care of her? Points to his head. That's such a good, simple moment. Just take care of her. But yeah, just setting up those stakes. Man, even that, like all the stuff with Eric Stoltz.
Oh, dude, he's so
just
good.
At the phone, crashing the car into the wall. My black medical book in the
medical book. But also the relationship between him and his wife, like Rosanna Arquette is awesome in it. Even though these are small parts, they just add to the whole tension of like it works because they're arguing, and this is how you might think of yourself reacting.
And like the camera choices too, where the camera will pan and he's like in the room, and you just see a little bit through the door, but you can see it's a pigsty.
There's no way he's
fighting it really builds the tension where he's trying to find the book, and he's not going to get it, and it just works so well. And just like, I've never given one either, but when I bring someone to your house, then you can do it. Like, this is your problem.
You're bring an ODing bitch over to your house.
Yeah, like when he's like, all right, you got to get through the breastplate. He's like, so you got to come down at a stabbing motion. And just like how naive that when he's just like, I got to stab her 3 times. Like just lines like that. Hilarious, dude.
That's also another thing, by the way. I really appreciated Travolta's performance in this film. His consistency about when he's high, when he's all these different, altered. I think he actually does a really good job of the believability and the character he creates through the whole thing. I'm not 100% sure what his accent is, what he was trying to go for there. It's a little, but besides that, I'm just like, he's so believable in the part.
Well, and even his temper too that he tries to keep at bay, where you can tell like
he knows
he doesn't like people talking to him a certain way. Like the moment someone says something, just like, you know, slightly
fuck you looking at
off, like rude or whatever, he's just immediately like quiet and how again that dynamic with him and Sam Jackson, how Sam Jackson knows it too, like you know, when they're washing their hands in the restroom and he's like, all right, look, man, like that's another great moment when they're there and he's like, what the fuck you do to his towel? He's
what kind of shit's gonna break?
He's like, you watched me wash him. I saw you get him wet. Like, maybe if you had lather, I would have done a better job.
I think that's the other funny part. I feel like some of us have been in that. I know it's an extreme where you've shot somebody in the face, but I feel like at some point you felt like Sam Jackson before, where you know, like having been through that shit. I was appreciating that more watching it this time. Like, dude, I think all of us could relate to Sam. Like, you know, where the dude, something's just not working the way that you need it to work at this point.
Well, and then he's just being like a guest in someone's. I was trying to explain to him too. He's like, no, he's a friend. You don't just go into your friend's place and start telling him what's what. And even just the shot of them standing with the coffee and they just got the blood. He still has like the brain in his hair.
Even at the first time we watched it, I remember so much. My brothers and my dad and I were just so laughing at the whole situation because they're having a goddamn Folgers commercial, you know, when they're covered in blood, like that. The ridiculousness of that. Yeah. We just hadn't seen something like that, you know. We're like they're having this conversation about coffee for some reason.
Well, they're trying to like talk him up, like, oh, this is great coffee thing. Where'd you get this?
They just gourmet shit on us.
Man, Harvey Keitel too, so great. I remember the first time seeing it because I loved him, like Mr. White, like my favorite character in that movie. So cool, and that was the first movie that I saw that I like knew who he was. Like I realized later, like, oh, I've seen him in these other movies, but that's when I like knew who this actor was, and I thought he was just awesome. And so him coming as like Mr. Wolf, and you know, writing the notes down. We got a body in a garage minus a head. You know?
I almost wish I had that weight watching it my first time. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, having gone back and seen so many Keitel performances, you're like, oh, dude, this guy's just the weight of what he brings to the part. Yeah. But like all of that was there in his performance in those moments. And it's another thing where I keep pointing to the performances, man. There's no slouch in any of these.
Yeah.
And the one I still keep going back to. At the time, I had never seen Ving Rhames in a part, so I didn't know what kind of actor. I had no preconceived notions of him as an actor, and his weight of the character. He's so believable as the boss of all of this. He's the one making all this things goes down, and it even blows me away more having. So he's like I know this is gonna sound really strange, but he did a part on ER for a while where he's a much quieter, not quieter, but not a big boss guy. You know, he works as a mechanic. And there's all these little things where I've seen him in even some of the Mission Impossible stuff where it's like he's just a different character than he is in this film. I really appreciated like his. I think it almost steals the show. He's so good in it.
Yeah,
especially with the way that he delivers the dialogue. You know. I can't even say half the things he says because it uses bad words, you know, the N word. But, you know, just the way he describes about having people, you know, here and there. And
if he's in Indochina, I want someone ready to pop out of his rice bowl to pop a cap.
Pop a cap. I'm
ready to scour the earth for that motherfucker.
I've always appreciated even more the scene after all of this stuff has gone down and he shot the dude in his shotgun shotgun. Just, you know, what about us now? There's not a lot of cuts in that scene. I didn't realize how. Yeah,
they're just in that two shot. And they don't even look at it. Like
they never
looks back at him.
Bruce, I mean, you know, Bruce has been in some parts I really, really, really like. This one it's next level, man. He does such a good job keeping a consistent character. But the fact that they have this almost mutual respect for what has happened and like that this is the kind of crazy shit that cleans the slate, you know, like, because you don't want to talk about none of this and yet you still have to talk. You gotta do business at the end of the day, you know, and it hits hard.
I love too that Bruce Willis say like, man, when I first watched this movie, and I don't think I fully grasped the stakes of what was happening between them the very first time. So now as I got older and like I really know, like it's even.
Or he fucked him over.
Yeah, but it's even more important to me, like the character of him of like going back to help him when like everything was probably telling him to not do that.
Walk away, yeah.
And yeah, the first time I watched it, man, and when he goes to the door, and I'm thinking like, shit, don't leave. And we don't even know what's happening.
We don't, at this point.
And then when he opens the door and he stops, and I'm like, yeah, go back, like help him out. I don't want to see anyone, die. And when he's like finding his weapons, I thought that was the coolest thing, like the hammer, the baseball bat, the chainsaw, and then the sword eventually.
I would have taken the chainsaw personally, but that's just me. But
that was my thought. Like, that's the way to go. That sword had greater range though, so I can appreciate that.
I can remember the first time we watched this. I know it's weird to say you've watched this with your family or whatever, but like the anticipation of what is happening, because you can hear it in the soundtrack, but like we hadn't seen, at least I hadn't seen anything that would even guess at what the hell, that there's a rape going on in there. Right. Like that just wasn't even in our mind, you know? And the fact that that's what it was so shocking and so surprising. And then to see what he ends up doing, that he's actually saving him from this. It is wild how crazy that scene actually was, to write that in, to let somebody put money into making a film that had that in there. Right. Still to this day, just blows my mind that even got made and didn't get censored out by the MPA, all those kind of things, because we were so homophobic at the time and all these kind of things, So, and even today, I mean, rape is something that it's incredibly tough. You have to be very delicate with those kind of things because that you can, sometimes it makes me sick to my stomach a lot of times when I see it, Yeah. So the fact that it was pulled off so well and that you're using it as a part of a redemption is like amazing, So it's wild. So incredibly well done.
It was weird, man. I remember that being like such a scary everything when I was like, because it bring out the gimp and like the pulling the person out of the cage and like, and he's just like, on his head. And I'm so like, good. What the fuck is happening? And just, you never find out. You never really know. It's just these weird people and
weird dudes.
Scary. All right.
On that upbeat note.
Yeah. Booker's Springfield Batch. All right, everybody. Here we go. This is going to be a long story right here.
Bookers.
So this is, the first batch of 2024 Springfield, 124.5 proof, age 7 years, 7 months, and 8 days. Here's the story, everybody.
Excuse me.
So the first release of the Booker's Bourbon 2024 collection is Booker's Batch 2024-01 Springfield Batch. This batch is named after the small town in central Kentucky where my dad, Booker Noe, was born and raised. Many people think Dad was from Bardstown, the bourbon capital of the world, but it wasn't until later in his adolescence that he moved into the Beam family home there. As a boy, he grew up in Springfield, Kentucky, a small rural town about 18 miles down the road. While the town has grown over the years alongside bourbon and a few other industries in the area, it was a farming community with many residents working in tobacco when Dad was young. Many, many years before he became the master distiller, he got his sense of hard work from his time as a farmhand in Springfield. One thing most folks don't know about the Springfield area is that it was where Abraham Lincoln's legacy began. Beyond that, I'd say Dad is probably one of the more recognizable figures to come from Springfield. Even though when he moved away, he spent a lot of time going back for family dinner, holidays, and even the extended no family reunion every summer. You never forget your hometown, and this batch is in honor of Dad's. I hope you enjoy it as much as he would have.
I can't hear Springfield and not think about the Simpsons, and then there's all these Springfields all around the country. But anyway, okay.
All right, sorry, a little more, everyone. All right, here's the Master Distiller's notes. The first Booker's batch of 2024 is called, all right, he's saying that again, sorry. The batch is made up of 5 production dates stored in 4 different aging warehouses. The age is 7 years, 7 months, 8 days, and is 124.5 proof. The breakdown of barrel storage for Booker's Springfield batch is as follows. Okay, in case anybody cares. 17% of it came from the 5th floor of 9-story warehouse G. 7% came from the 4th floor of 9-story warehouse H. 31% came from the 5th floor of 7-story warehouse Z. 45% came from the 4th floor of 7-story warehouse 3. You can go ahead and drink it right now if you want. I can tell you're like ready to go.
No, it's interesting. Continue.
Sorry. The color of this Booker's batch is a rich golden amber from over 7 years of aging in the new white oak barrels. The nose has a nice, pleasant aroma of sweet brown sugars and vanilla.
I've literally got the brown sugar as soon as I put my nose in it.
The taste is balanced with the pleasant heat. The finish is long and warm, which I appreciated during the cold days we experienced in January here in Kentucky. I know Dad would love tasting this batch and sharing stories about his hometown. I hope you enjoy this first batch of Bookers for 2024. Okay.
I have respect for the folks who distill this stuff, the master distillers and stuff. The fact that you find that perfect combination of 14% this, 30% this, that blows my mind, because that's chemistry, man. That's that's trying and finding something that you hope us will enjoy is wild to me.
Yeah, it's such a crazy job. Like, I wonder how long it takes them and how many different variations they came up with until they decided on that.
Yeah, for real, man.
Not 15%, but 13%. That's the ticket right there. Well, even that, when you just think of like, say, just Jim Beam or Knob Creek Wild Turkey 101, whatever, like all this stuff that it's crazy to think. It's like we just see like, all right, Wild Turkey 101, but there's people or a person that's like tasting hundreds, possibly thousands, maybe of like barrels a day. And like deciding which ones are going to make up. Yeah. All right, here's Knob Creek now. Here's Jack Daniels.
That's wild, man. Like you can science all this stuff too. Like at the end of the day, there's a person making this decision that this is what hits the tongue correctly. It blows my mind. It's respect matters. Even though I haven't had a taste of it yet, I definitely got the brown sugar right away. But
it smells so good.
It smells delicious.
That's the best nose so far today.
Oh yeah, by far.
Oh, let me go to the other one now. Let's see.
Well, it doesn't have the flavor.
It doesn't have the rich like sweetness. Yeah. The Booker's definitely on the sweeter end. Well, all right, cheers.
Cheers, dude. This is. Whoa! Oh wow! Holy shit!
124.5.
Okay, I was like, okay, you definitely noticed that step up. Damn, that is so good. There's so much in there. Where do you even start? It's been a minute since I've had something this strong.
I wonder if it's just my palate today, maybe from the Diet Coke and pizza I had before this, but
we fucked it up.
It does have, I don't get the same sweet notes on the palate that I do in the nose. I get more of the oak forwardness and that same kind of, again, bitter is a strong word, but that kind of charry, maybe bitter vibe I got off the Jim Beam Black.
Yeah, for sure.
Just souped up to like a way
turned the volume
bigger, way bigger level.
It's a lot of heat up front, which is not surprising at 124, but I got a fair amount of heat and going down as well. I actually did get some of those flavors I got in the nose. That's interesting that you didn't. And I'm wondering if maybe because I ate a little bit before you, I don't know if that had any impact on it. I was actually getting some of that. There's what I would call sweetness. You had to get past some of the heat to get there for me.
Yeah, right.
But then I was getting it. I really like it a lot. It's really tasty. That's interesting. You weren't quite getting that.
It's definitely the classic Beam note for me. Like that more, than anything. Can I get a little more Knob Creek now? Now I'm just going to compare all three of these again.
Sorry, it's a ridiculously huge bottle.
No, it's all right.
I have the Costco bottle, folks. So if you know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't even know how many liters.
They're usually 1.75 liters.
Oh, jeez. Almost a 2-liter bottle. That's wild. At the bottom there. Oh, no, it doesn't have it on there. Oh.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be 1.75.
It's ridiculous.
A little too much. Well, that's okay.
If you need to crash, more than one.
All right, let me go back to the Jim Beam Black real quick.
Yeah, I think that's actually fair. I want to do that before I finish this.
Well, that turned into water.
It did. It still got some flavor for me, though, interestingly enough. It's not as bad as the black, the original black.
Yeah.
That was a huge.
That was way too light.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it is actually. What am I talking about? This is still pretty light. Damn it. I mean, I guess when you taste, do you want to go from do you want to start off, at your lower proofs and then work up from there?
That's how I like to do it. If I'm gonna do like a tasting with friends or even. I like to do it that way. I know Fred Minnick in one podcast or something said that that's kind of like a lame way to go about it. But he was talking more about how the flight should be built. Don't build it by proof, build it by a historical story or something different, a different or way than just
something different,
low proof to high proof. But in a case like this, it's the jump from 90 to 124.5 is pretty big.
It's pretty drastic. Yeah.
So if I was doing a blind and I mixed them up, I would hope it wouldn't be in the front, because then it's all right. Well, now my palate's burned out for everything else, but now the knob, man. Yeah, I definitely get more of that brown sugar off the Booker's, whereas the knob is very vanilla heavy right now. Vanilla peanut butter.
I'm going to go back to the Booker's here for a second. Interesting. That last step, I'm getting a little more of the flavors on the Booker's.
But acclimated a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let it sit on my tongue for a little bit. When I did the Garrison Bros tasting, they said that you should do 8 seconds before your first sip.
Okay.
And then, the nose, the family, the Booker and all that. I think Booker's actually the one who came up with the Kentucky Chew, where you swish it around and literally chew on it, whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
didn't know that had a name. Okay, that's what they call that, Kentucky Chew.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
But when you see people do it, it's like they're swishing mouthwash.
Yeah, it literally looks like it. So.
I've tried that a few times. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it gets to a point where I'm I feel like I just zapped my mouth of everything.
Well, and I keep telling myself at some point I should start spitting, but I just can't do it. The stuff that, the flavor, I like having that flavor and feeling it the whole way. I don't know. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it would be, man, the Knob Creek holds up well with it though.
It does. Okay. I'm going to join you and try a little taste.
Yeah. It would be weird to spit because then you don't even get the finish, right?
Right. That's my thought about it.
But I do understand, because the people.
But if I was working, that'd be a totally different thing. So.
And the people that judge the competition. Well, even we were talking about the master distillers that put the batches together.
Yeah, man, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing nothing but spitting it out. Otherwise, you're gonna die in 30 minutes.
Yeah,
but
you'd be done. Yeah, that's a good point. The Knob Creek actually does. It's still a little bit. My last sip was the Booker, so it's definitely a step down, or less strong, I should say.
Yeah.
Not a step down, but I mean,
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. On the spitting note, I remember originally I wanted to do Hateful Eight with all the Russells.
Oh, yeah.
And I was talking to Chris about it, and he said something about how I'm gonna have to spit and all that, and I was like, no, you're not.
You're
not when I bought all the bottles. Dude. You're not spitting anything.
Damn, you're gonna enjoy.
Yeah, there's no way. It's if someone's bringing bottles for free, or you're over here tasting hundreds of barrels, sure, whatever. But when it's stuff I paid for, I don't want you tasting with me if you plan on spitting it.
Maybe you can relate to this. I grew up in a house too. My parents didn't force food down us, but if you took something and you put it on your plate, you had to finish that shit. Yeah. So because they grew up poor, so they had that mentality. So that's if somebody poured you something, you're fucking drinking it.
Yeah. Right.
Not that at 5 years old, my parents were pouring me bourbon, but just say.
That reminds me of the $5 milkshake when he's like $5. Put any bourbon in there?
Yeah, right. Okay, you just reminded me. Okay, that's a great point. One of the things I had never really considered about this film, it's actually a period piece, especially nowadays if you think about it. Yeah. But there are so many choices where he intentionally places you kind of in a time and a place. The mobile phones or the cell phones, whatever. But the music, the cars, the things that are on TV, the cultural things. This was the most I was aware of it this time. And I was like, oh, this is of the early 90s or late 80s, whenever he's trying to place us there. I think it's intentional that those things, we didn't have access to the internet, for lack of a better term. Like all these things that I think are just actually impact the story. I really was aware. I don't know. Did you have that thinking about that at all?
Or not to that degree, just a little bit. I think a lot of that goes with just all the, because he made hit like the talking about pop culture and TV and movies. So I think that definitely adds to it. Like this era,
explaining what a pilot is. Like nowadays, you Google that, but like his character had to explain it to you because you might not have known what that is. So I just thought those were some really interesting choices. And the intercom in the house, there were all these little things. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. It puts you in a place and a time. This isn't today,
right?
And I thought those are intentionally a really good and important detail. Actually, it helps you understand what the stake, like why they have to do certain things. So I thought that was really cool.
One thing you mentioned earlier was John Travolta getting whacked partway through, and I remember that being really shocking first time I saw it. I was like, wait, what? Especially because they make it a point to put it like right after his whole segment, his storyline. But I've always loved like getting to the end too and realizing, that like you connected back to the divine intervention thing about Jackson's like, no, I'm getting out of here. It was a miracle by God. It's a sign. I don't know.
Walk like Cain.
I'm just going to walk the earth like Cain in Kung Fu, solve problems, get in adventures. And then, the realization of like, oh shit, that like, that's why he died. Because if he had walked away too, obviously he would have lived. Or if Sam Jackson stayed, then he probably would have lived because he would have been there to have his back, but he was alone and he was in a bad position. And I just think that's very interesting.
It's a great setup. And one of the things you always hear about writers talk about in drama, that if somebody does make it out, if they are redeemed, if there's something that happens, usually there has to be a sacrifice for it. It's one of like the rules of drama. Like it just makes the drama more dramatic. Yeah. And so I was thinking about it this time through. I'm like, why choose the nonlinear approach to this? Like why does that add impact? And I think you just highlighted it. Like we went through a complete journey with Travolta. We had the highs, we had the lows, we had what it looks like to live, this life, and then the extremes of things that happen and what happens. And so I don't think his death wouldn't have been as impactful had you might have told this story, from point A to point B to point C. And so I just think that's a real interesting, I've thought about that choice even now to this day. And I'm glad he did it because like, obviously it gave people permission after this to tell their stories in different ways. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm like, damn, I can't imagine this movie going from point A to point B. Like it wouldn't have the same impact,
It's interesting to think back on scenes too, because when you get to the end, you realize like, man, they went through like all that shit before they even got to the restaurant. You know what I mean? Or before he got to the date with Mia.
Right, dude. That's after that. Yeah, like, that's wild, right?
Like he's just there buying the drugs later and someone keyed his car or whatever.
Fucking keyed my car.
Well, one thing we have to point out too is that, Quentin didn't write this alone.
Yeah.
Roger Avery also, took the Oscar, with him. And my understanding is that the whole gold watch section of it, like the Bruce Willis stuff, was all him.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sure, because from what I understand,
they took different sections.
They took like just incomplete works they have and ideas and different scripts, and I think that's part of why the choice to do the nonlinear.
Oh, interesting. Okay, makes sense.
And then they just took all these different stories, and even though it's stuff that's familiar territory, did a fresh take on it. But I guess that whole section was his. I'm sure Quentin Tarantino punched some of it up.
Likewise, there's probably stuff that maybe Avery looked at, right after the fact. I'm sure when you're working with somebody, there's going to be that collaboration.
I wonder, truthfully, like how much was like from who and what exactly, and we'll never know. Is there any parts in this movie that now, with like a lot of time has gone by and looking back at it, that aren't as strong to you as they may have used to be, or is it all just like balls?
I was actually thinking about that. Like, are there any parts that weren't working or that I tuned out, or that there is only one? And I don't quite. So after Butch finishes his fight and he jumps in the cab with Esmeralda Villalobos, even watching it again today, I like the scene, but I can't quite figure out why it's there. and some of the other scenes are just they even stuff like when they're talking in the cars, just getting to know, they're doing their normal chit chat shit. It helps us understand the characters a little bit. And that one, I'm not even. It tells Butch that he killed a person, and like that was new information to him. But outside of that,
he doesn't feel bad about it.
And he doesn't feel bad about it. At the same time, we kind of already know that because he won the fight. He didn't go down in the fifth like he was supposed to. So I was trying to. It's the only scene where I'm like, I don't quite understand why this is here, and it's the only part of the film that didn't quite click with me. Literally everything else, it was working for me 100%. And I hate to say it because I do like the performances in it, but I don't quite get it.
So for me, it's after that. It's when he gets to the motel and he's talking to
his girlfriend,
name?
Fabian?
Yeah, about Potbelly's.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Okay, that's the last time I had watched this years ago. When I got to that scene, that's when I had realized, I'm like, you know what? This can't be, if I were to rank his movies, this can't be number one. And I think it's because that's...
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Just because of that.
She just kind of annoys me, man. But I get it. It's part of it. And
right.
It works in the long run.
We got to understand the stakes of like what the big deal is about him leaving. But I see your point.
Yeah. But it works when he does... they're all like cutesy, but when he like freaks out about the watch, he's like yelling at her and shit, and then you feel the same frustration,
that he does, dude.
Like,
I gotta tell you, I appreciated that even more watching it this time. I'm glad you mentioned it because like Bruce Willis freaks out big. It's almost scary to freak out.
Yeah, it is.
And at the same time, I was like, dude, I can relate. There are times where I felt like that, where I thought I was clear about what I did. And I even appreciate that he takes a little bit of ownership of it. Like, maybe I didn't make this as clear. Like, he completely freaks out, but at the same time, he realizes maybe I didn't,
But then when he's in the car, he's hitting the steering. He's like, I fucking told her. We've all been
there. We've all done that, dude.
He's like,
I'm like, I fucking know I explained this correctly. What the fuck,
But he's trying to, like, keep her cool and all that.
He's being a good partner, and I respect that, man. Totally.
Yeah, he's like, I'll just yell in the car instead.
He throws a fucking TV. I forgot that he had thrown a TV. That shit's scary, dude. Those things are huge, CRT. So
yeah, he ramps up really fast, and it's well done. Like, we immediately get it because we had the whole Christopher Walken scene with
I love it. Do you know what my father had to go through this? Like, I love, because we do know. We as the audience know.
Yeah, so it's well earned when he just like suddenly ramps up to 11.
Dude, for real.
And that she's at that point, the way he talks to her, like, she's not even his partner anymore. She's now like an obstacle who's just fucked his shit up. Like, like you see that, and it's such good acting.
Oh,
like,
he's so good. Yeah, that scene is incredible.
Yeah, like he doesn't even see her almost as a person anymore. Like, now she's an enemy.
Yes, yeah, like, you literally,
man.
Oh, he goes red. Like, I mean, there's it's so good. And then to switch it back on. I mean, like, to have the realization, and he, he's got to go back for it. I just that it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so great.
I'm trying to think of now. Everything else works for me besides that. Like, the music's even better now. I mean, I know this, not just knowing all the lines and stuff, but knowing the sound. Like you said, you mentioned the soundtrack. That was such an. It felt like at the time that was such an important aspect to this film, was the soundtrack to it, and Tarantino wasn't the first to put music to the movie the way that it did, but it just works so well for this film. Like, the songs are all perfect, which is pretty incredible.
And just like the Miserlou opening credits, like, it's great to think like that alone feels like it was a game changer. Like, I imagine if I watched this in theaters, I wonder if that was a moment where people like really knew oh shit, right? We're like, something's happening here, like something's happening here.
For me, it's definitely one of the most memorable cold opens, I think, like, ever, where you throw it in and then that guitar comes in, I was getting it. I could literally feel my heart starting to go as I was watching it this time. Maybe because it's been a few years since I've seen the film, but damn, it works.
It kind of, man, there was a moment where it made me feel like a kid again. Like,
yes.
It made me feel like, I don't know, a little bit like when I first saw it,
right?
What that
You're
was
having
like.
that experience again.
Yeah, it took me back a little bit. Yeah, Danny DeVito was a producer on this too, right?
That.
Yeah.
There's a Kathy Griffin. Did you notice that she's in this?
Yeah. When Marcellus gets hit with the car.
Yes. Yeah. And Julia Sweeney's in the. There's just a couple of cameos that I had missed the first. I think everyone noticed Steve Buscemi, as the, as the waiter. Server. But just so many things like that where it's once again, there's no wasted acting talent. Like it's all put to good use. Little damn things, man. I'm glad it holds up too. Do you know what? Did they shoot this on 16 mil?
No, it was 35 for sure.
Okay. The print that I was watching the HD version, and there were times where it looks a tad soft, and I don't know if that's the film or the version you watch. Are you watching on Blu-ray? What'd you watch on?
This time I watched it on, I think, Max.
Okay. Was it pretty good? I should have watched it on Max.
It was good quality. I mean, okay. I think there was some moments that were maybe a hair soft, but
I couldn't tell if it was like the way that they had shot or if it was the compression from the place I was watching.
There was a little bit where, yeah, that's the funny thing with these TVs and
dude, it's so tough, right?
Right? Because I did notice, and I mean, I hadn't seen it in a while, but there were some scenes like the beginning at the diner, sitting by the window, where it was like pretty contrasty.
That's what I was thinking too,
like,
man.
I'm like, was it really always like this, or is this just the streaming or the whatever it is?
It's tough to know nowadays with so many factors that can impact that.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to go to New Beverly on Monday or whatever and see the print. Because Lord knows it. I think it's the 21st. Yeah, the Monday or Tuesday. It's like right when I leave town.
Have they sold out?
Oh, I don't know. Good question. I think they're gonna show it for like 2 or 3 days though.
Damn, maybe I gotta get in there.
But even if not now, like they do his movies, like they pick a movie of his to do like midnights of every month. So it'll play again,
I mean, since that I've seen all of his films in theater. So, I mean, it's not like I have that experience. I wish I would have had it with Reservoir Dogs. I almost immediately watched Reservoir Dogs after I had seen this, because my dad ended up buying. He's like, I gotta watch that movie. So show the kids and stuff. And that one was tough for me to watch as a teenager. The scene with the ear was really tough for me. Reservoir Dogs. So
even though they don't show anything,
I don't know. It got me.
It did make me uncomfortable too as a kid, especially when he's holding it and talking into it.
Yeah,
and he's like throwing gasoline on his face.
The gasoline. You mentioned. Have you talked about Kill Bill on the podcast? I can't remember.
I have, with a dude from Canada.
There was part of after seeing this, the build up to Kill Bill. I remember being a big thing because he had specifically taken time off to let Uma Thurman, have her child and go through. Like he wasn't going to make the film without her. So the fact that was being reported on in Variety and all these type of things, like there was this anticipation to that film, and the fact that they marketed it as their 4th film. It's interesting how his films became a part of the culture. It wasn't just films, and that's one of the things I think I love about a lot of films where it's not just that I associate the wonderful film with my memories of it. It's the things that everything else, like this has really changed how I think about movies and how I think about things and how we can talk to one another. Like we can have intellectual conversations and say fuck at the same time. Like he almost gave us permission, as well as Linklater and Smith and all these other people who were doing it at the time. But like, it was almost like permission to talk that way, And I just think that's one of the things I think is so interesting about what he's done and how I have this affinity for his films. I don't know. That's the way I feel.
Yeah. It's crazy too that like so many people tried to rip off what he was doing, but like no one came, maybe Guy Ritchie, but I wonder too. So Guy Ritchie, it's like, would Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch exist the same way if it weren't for Reservoir Dogs?
I can't imagine those movies get made without Pulp Fiction.
But I wonder too if it's because they're from like the other continent or whatever. If maybe it was already that. I mean, maybe
Trainspotting was already a thing that had come out by the time he made his films. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, and not that
was it? I thought Trainspotting was like late 90s.
Was it? Oh, geez, maybe you might be right. I could be misremembering.
I'll have to fact check. Yeah, I don't remember. I haven't seen that in a while. I got to watch that again. It's
a good flick.
But maybe around the same time. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
that's a great question.
Yeah, I guess maybe I shouldn't bring up like other countries, but I feel like maybe that wouldn't be without this.
Who knows?
But definitely
right?
in American cinema in the 90s, like there was a whole wave. Oh my gosh,
Go and all these other films,
of everyone trying to do this shit, like and not even getting anywhere near it. Which is interesting. It's crazy.
It is.
He like literally changed the game and changed cinema for us.
Not to mention the careers that he helped perpetuate, like that went on to great things that we get to see because of him. I mean, all of those things I think really connect, and I can't imagine a non-Pulp Fiction world, right?
Right.
Maybe there would have been something that came around that changed it the way that he did, but at the same time, you can't imagine history without it at this point.
Yeah,
especially pop culture.
Yeah, it's. Man, I wonder what the next movie we're going to get that's going to do that for us, because we need it soon.
Well, we recently looked at Jordan Peele's films, and I think he's having an impact on the culture. I feel like he's having that kind of impact, and the Avenger films have had an impact on culture. I mean, there's these things that, who the hell knows? Who knows what's going to impact it that way?
Yeah.
If the way that our media landscape is changing, cinema may not be the thing that impacts it the same. I don't know. Maybe it will. Who the hell knows? I mean, Mr. Beast is having an impact on culture, and he's producing funny videos on YouTube. So it's like, who the hell knows? It just might be a different thing. As far as like narrative goes, it's tough, man. Like, what's changing the game with that? So,
because I remember during the Halloween season, my friend Chris and we were talking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I was like, I feel like there's certain movies where it's like there's before, it's one of those like there's before Texas Chainsaw. And then there's after.
Totally agree
there's
with that,
before Psycho, and there's after Psycho. Like
kind of
Exorcist,
I feel like Halloween is similar to that.
Yeah, it's like there's certain movies that like kind of bring in that turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Pulp is for sure one of them.
Star Wars is the easiest one.
Star Wars,
to point to, right? Pre and post Star Wars. So yeah. What's next? That's super interesting. What will be next? I mean, I don't know.
With that being said, I think we've got to mention real quick before we wrap it up here is, Roger Corman passed away earlier this week, 98 years old.
I didn't realize he was still alive. I'm sorry, man. I'm that
asshole. Really?
Yeah, I was like, I thought he'd passed, but I didn't realize he was 98. Dude.
Yeah,
big bucket of win for him, man.
Yeah, he was trucking, and it's crazy. There's another dude that just, changed the game and launched. It's amazing the amount of careers and shit that started off with him and like went on to do all these brilliant things.
Speaking of that, I hope that might be our next generation. Corman made films for a ton of films that didn't cost a lot of money, but still they made it a possibility for people to get started and to try things and do things like that. And it's one of the things that we're seeing a challenge in the industry right now. He made B movies, he made all these different types of films, and I really do hope that there is a place for things like that. And I think there is, but I hope that is something that we can see more of, because I feel like we're missing something. I'm a fan of stupid B movies that, they're fun popcorn movies for 90 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like Corman always delivered on that stuff. And I hope part of his legacy, maybe that revitalized. I don't know, man. I miss that style of film, to say the least. So,
well, we still got the Asylum doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there you go. We got Asylum doing it.
Well, I guess before we wrap here, since we're on the 30-year anniversary, Pulp Fiction, many movies have come since then. Kill Bill, 4th movie, Pulp Fiction, the 2nd movie. Now he's got 9 films. Can you at this moment rank your Tarantino films?
Oh man.
And we'll say it doesn't have to be definitive, because obviously things change, but
I think it's tough to do that with art. At the same time, the more I keep watching Inglourious Bastards, the more that one keeps rising to the top for me, interestingly enough. And same with Django Unchained. This is very close. Those are probably my top 3 if I had to rank them. It's tough for me not to think of Pulp Fiction or to watch it without the nostalgia goggles. Like yourself, that cold open, I literally, like yourself, man, dude, I felt like I was a teenager again, man. Right there with my dad and my brothers and blasting the sound and getting something that I had never seen before. So it's tough to ignore that when I'm ranking things, The more I watch Inglourious Bastards, the more I just appreciate so much perfection in that thing. Every bit of it.
Yeah. For years, I considered that, like, that's for sure his best movie. Now I don't know.
And now I don't know. I mean, he's made so many wonderful films, and I did a little, we've talked about before. There's this, in Kill Bill, this whole thing they came up with Uma Thurman having to do the stunt, and that she agreed to do, but at the same time got hurt doing it. You know, like that sits with me a little bit. And recently, she's publicly forgiven Quentin for some of that, and so that makes that change my mind a little bit about some of this, you know, and so it's tough to even think about just the art as it is, because there's all these other cultural impacts of it. So I'd say those are my top three. I really enjoyed the Hateful Eight rewatch we did, man. Like that was fucking awesome. I still have struggled with the one with DiCaprio recently.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I know, and that's been one of my ones. That's probably towards the bottom.
Oh, dang.
Which I know it's an unpopular opinion, but what was this last film? What was the last one we got from?
No, that was it.
That was it. Okay, so that one's a little tough for me.
I think that's actually a pretty popular opinion, though. Like,
Is it okay?
I think a lot of people feel that way, where they're like, I don't quite get it. You know, not saying that you don't get it, but I know there's definitely a good amount of people.
It didn't resonate with me the same way all of his other ones are. If I had to take movies on an island, you know, for the rest of my life, I want to take most of basically his whole filmography. Like the more I watch Jackie Brown, the more I'm like in love with that film, man. The acting is so fucking good in that film, and it wouldn't have been as good without the writing being stellar, and it's an adaptation and all these things. Just maybe because the older I get. We talked about Jackie Brown, didn't we?
I was gonna say, I think we did.
Like that's why I'm like, dude, I'm like,
it gets better and better.
That goes up there. So the more I watch it, so. Maybe because it's dealing with people, I'm getting closer to that age. So it's like, I don't know, man. And Kill Bill is just fun. Fucking the Kill Bills are just so much fun watching. So I don't know, man.
Kill Bill has so much soul, so much heart.
So much reverence for the genre and all the other people who came before him, you know? It's so good.
Yeah, man.
Where'd you rank it?
I don't know.
You don't?
No. You know what's funny is because for a while, I think when the last time I watched Pulp, I was like, you know what, it might be at the bottom for me. Mind you, there's no losers in this.
There is,
there is. Everything is a winner.
Yeah.
And that was literally just because that one scene, the Bruce Willis and the girlfriend scene.
Right? That'd be that took you out of it.
But now, like, seeing it again, like the way I felt seeing the opening and getting to the opening credits and the music and what it reminded me of, I'm like, that alone is enough to like boost it up to like top 5. But I always say that with Quentin's movies, and I hope I can feel this way about another filmmaker someday, is that every time I watch one of his movies, that one, I'm like, this is the best one. This is my favorite one.
That's a good point. Dude, that's like, a very fair point.
Every single time.
I haven't gone back and watched Death Proofs in a while, so I want to go back and watch that nowadays, because I'm sure I'll be in the same boat. Like, this is the
yeah, dude, Death Proof is crazy, man. That movie still blows my mind. Like, I still get like really tense watching it.
It's in the theaters. It was so much. It was so much fun watching that film.
But yeah, to at least give like a top few, and it's tough, man. Like Hateful Eight might be number 1.
So good.
It might be number 1. That one is just a banger. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is up there. Inglourious Bastards and Kill Bill is for sure up there. Like, those are the ones that are floating at the top for sure.
For sure. Tough thing to do.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I think that's a wrap. Thanks for doing this with me.
Fun to watch, man.
Yeah.
We love the rewatch.
Yeah. All right. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinAmoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.